know the difference between them. Thanks be to God. If only I would let you go that quickly. Because there's a couple other things in this that Jesus doesn't do such a good job at explaining. And not that I'm going to do any better, but there have been some others who've thought about it, and I want to share with y'all a couple of their thoughts. The first is that little piece in between the telling of the parable and the explanation of the parable. Does that confuse any of you? It seems to me there's just ears to hear and listening and eyes to see and not seeing. And it seems to me that it kind of sounds like what Jesus is doing is setting us up to not perceive or to understand. How can that be when this parable is so simple and pure? How can it be that the disciples could not understand this parable? I mean, dude, would you really have any problems getting it? Of course, you understand the parable. We understand that, but the disciples have to ask for an explanation of that. And that explanation eventually comes, but not until we're told something about the mystery of seeing and not seeing, of hearing and not hearing. And it has something to do with this. Okay, you ready? Here's what it is. Isaiah said it. If I could paraphrase Jesus there, here's what he would say. Isaiah said it. You get a word of truth. You get a word from God. And because you don't want to hear, you act as if you have no ears. Because you don't want to see truth, you act as if you're blind. So go ahead, Isaiah said. Be deaf, be blind. But as for me, I'll listen for the truth, no matter how difficult it is. That may not be a very fair retelling of the way Jesus said it there. He probably said it in the Greek or Aramaic far more prosaically than I just did. But you get what he's saying there? I'm telling parables, not just as cute little stories that you can go and share around the campfire. I'm telling parables of truth, of good news, of gospel, and of God's love. Okay, so we've got that. That's a part. There's one other part, one other element in this parable that Jesus doesn't explain. We've got the seed, that's God's word. We've got the dirt, and we've got the path, lack of understanding. We've got the thorns, distractions of life, the rock, shallowness, fertile soil, yielding fruitfulness and all that. But there's this sower in there. Now, I believe that the first question to ask of any parable, though most of us ask, who am I in this passage, right? That's why we get so much about the different kinds of ground, because we want to know, what kind of ground am I? Am I smart and brilliant and understand also I'm not the path? And I'm very deep in my spiritual life, so I'm not the rock. So who am I? Am I the first? I must be, except that so often. Can I just confess? Since you confessed, I'll confess too. I'm among the thorns. Among the thorns that allow the distractions of life just to choke out that good discipleship that I know, that good spiritual connection that I've felt and I've experienced so many times in my life. But I am spiritually ADD, and I get so distracted. But you see, that's the first question. That's normally the first question we ask. It seems to me the better question to ask of a parable is not where am I in this parable, but where is God in this parable? And God is sowing seeds. I don't know if y'all are farmers or gardeners. When I was in high school, I had to do a Future Farmers of America project. I lived in this little town in Livonia, and went to Livonia High School, lived in Lottie, and had a little plot of ground out there. And we had to do an FFA project, Future Farmers of America. And at first I tried raising rabbits. And I was quite successful at the raising of rabbits. They kind of do that themselves. Went from 2 to 22 rabbits just like that. Seemed like overnight. What I was not so good at was cleaning and skinning and selling the rabbits. Man, I decided I couldn't kill my rabbits. I loved my little rabbits. And so I wasn't real good in the rabbit business. And my advisor said, you need to get out of the rabbit. You're losing money here. Do something else. The idea is to make money in agriculture. So I said, okay, I'll raise a garden. I'll sell some of the vegetables from my garden. So I did. I took that very seriously too. I loved my little plot of land that Mom let me have there. I shoveled it over. I borrowed the neighbor's tiller. I fertilized it, got it all nice and neat and in rows. I put out tomatoes, cucumbers, a few green beans, a couple of okras. I spaced them out so that the bell peppers wouldn't bleed over and taste up the cucumbers and that kind of thing, you know. They wouldn't pepper up the cucumbers because I'd heard that was happening. And then every day I went out and I plucked and I weeded and I hoed and I pruned those little things, those little stems that grow in between the tomato, you know, those little cheater things you got to pull out of there. I was so proud. And I didn't make a whole lot of money, but I made more money doing that than I did when my neighbors were kind to me and they bought some of my tomatoes off of me so that in my book I could show I turned a profit. And it was wonderful. I loved my little garden. I don't know if y'all remember Tropical Storm Babe. Y'all remember Tropical Storm Babe? Demolished my garden. I just staked my tomato plants and were up so good and just gone overnight. Tropical Storm Babe. But anyway, loved my little garden. Now, just literally feet away. Say, as far as I am from my garden to this river oak tree that my mom has in her front yard, there was another garden. Now that garden didn't have tomatoes or cucumbers growing in it. Maybe it does today, but back then it was at the foot, at the base of, in the crook of Mama's river oak tree. The trunk came down, and before it made roots, it kind of started making the shape of roots before it hit the ground, you know, so it kind of had caves or curves in it. And inside of those things would grow the most beautiful flowers, you know, spider lilies and violets and all kinds of wild swamp plants that we had no idea. Today, Mom has 2 magnolia trees growing there. And do you know how much of that she planted? 0. Not a thing. As a matter of fact, we never tilled it. We never fertilized that area. We never scattered a seed at all. But that little piece of earth has been... The magnolia trees bloom in the summertime in the shade of that river. I just don't get it. I know there's an explanation for it. You and I probably know what happened. Birds, you know, picked up some seed over there. They flew and made their home and their privacy chambers in my mom's river oak tree. Dropped the seeds with fertilizer and all near the base of the river oak tree. And those things just spring up now. Seems like very unplanned, disorganized. Beautiful. It seems to me what this sower does too. He takes his bag of seed and he heads out. Is he going to his garden? I don't know. If he is, it seems like his house is a good distance from his garden. Because he has to walk down a path, all the while just casting seed. Walk over some stony, gravelly area, seed just going out. Past the thorn bushes, seeds everywhere in the thorns, till finally he gets to his cultivated piece of property. And he continues to throw out. He seems to me